Thank you very much, Madam Presiding Officer. Madam Presiding Officer, in wrapping up this debate, I wish to address perhaps a few misunderstandings about the law and misunderstandings about the interpretation of one particular legal matter that the Tobago House of Assembly lost. In fact, if you should go through public records, you would hear the former Chief Secretary, Mr. Charles, telling the then THA that they would have lost that matter because they made the wrong pleadings or the wrong case. And so I want to start by saying that this motion does not seek to create a new law. This motion does not seek to create a new policy. This motion does not ask for this House and the Executive to do anything outside of national policy as it already exists. What this motion allows for is that the THA will take up the function. We did not ask to create new policy. We did not ask to create new laws, to take up the function. And to show you, to illustrate how the interpretation of the judgment by the minority leader was incorrect in that matter, notwithstanding losing the court case, the Tobago House of Assembly proceeded to set up its own reforestation program. The central government had its reforestation program that the THA could not stop, and the THA, then PNM THA, proceeded to set up its own reforestation program. So if it was that the THA could not carry out the function, not create a new policy, not create a new law, but if the THA could not carry out the function as per the ruling in that case, then the THA could not set up its own reforestation program that created a parallel system. In fact, once upon a time on the island, there were two sets of reforestation programs going on. One held by the THA, which until about 5 or so years ago was abandoned by the central government, and a second run by the THA, parallel at the same time.
Member for Darius Ringrim.
On a point of correction, the issue why the THA was allowed to have a parallel reforestation program ongoing is because the matter was appealed. And because you had a stay in the judgment, it allowed and afforded for, but it was not authorized in terms of law. The judgment is clear.
Madam Presiding Officer, even if the matter was appealed and the THA was allowed to continue or to have its own parallel system, one wouldn't think that if the matter was as clear and pointing in the direction the minority leader is pointing to, that upon the final determination, the THA would have had to abandon its parallel program. And we have not abandoned it because up to recently, we had to organize to pay the people in the reforestation program that have not been paid since October last year. So clearly, it is happening. And I also wish to point this out, that the Town and Country Planning Act, to which we still rely heavily on, that act is from 1960. This modern THA did not exist then. And so there were no opportunities to include a THA in that act since 1960. But let me draw another reference point. What authorizes the division of works to close off a road in Tobago? The only law that authorizes closing off of roadways in the country says Minister of Works. None of them talk about any Secretary of Works anywhere. But the Division of Works can and have in the past closed off roads to do road repairs or to do other things that are necessary. What is the authority that allows that? Because based on Section 74(3) of the Constitution, such function, not lawmaking, not policy making. Such function was delegated to the THA. And so the THA, through the Division of Infrastructure, through its line secretary, can close off a road, although the law says nothing about a secretary. The law speaks about a minister. And that's the point I'm making. This motion does not seek to create a new law. This motion does not seek to change a policy as per the laws that already exist on the books. This motion simply says that the THA should be carrying out the function in accordance with the laws and policies as they already exist. So we're not contending with anybody about lawmaking or about policy making function. We're not arguing with anybody about that. We're not seeking that at all. The case the THA made against the central government with reforestation, in that case, the THA's pleadings was that the central government has no authority to make policy and to implement policy with regards to the fifth schedule in Tobago. That is untrue. They do have the authority. It's the only lawmaking body in the country. But what the laws provide for is that where it's a matter under the fifth schedule, the function should be carried out by the THA. Is why former Chief Sec Hochoy Charles could have stopped Pandy and them from paving roads in Tobago back in 2001. Why do you think they could stop them? It's because the function was delegated to the THA. Mr. Charles was smart. He understood not to make a case against policy making, but against implementation and the function. That's why he was able to do that. And let me add something else that the minority leader is unaware of. Is the minority leader aware that leading up to 2001, that the final arbiter for queries with regards to land development in Tobago was the then Secretary of Planning, who was the Chief Secretary, Mr. Hochoy Charles? Is the minority leader aware that John Humphrey and all of those guys wanted to do a development in Kings Bay, and it was Mr. Hochoy Charles as Chief Secretary who denied that on behalf of the people of Tobago by taking up the same tongue and country planning function that is saying we should not take up today and that we need to be concerned about the legalities of doing so? Are you also aware that the former Chief Secretary went as far as to organize for a tongue planner and all of that to come to Tobago to be part of the build-out? We should have done this a long time ago, you know. To be part of the build-out of our own unit for tongue and country planning. And guess what? Government changed and they just abandoned that completely and just left the function with Trinidad. And it is the functioning of tongue and country planning that the THA will be taking up in this case. And the reference was made to the TRHA. Why doesn't the minister in Trinidad come and appoint the TRHA board in Tobago? He can't. And the law recognizes that. He can't. So the motion does not seek to change the law. The motion does not seek to change policy. The motion does not contend with existing laws on the books. We are saying that the existing laws on the books, those are what we will honor, but that function will be carried out by the THA. I also need to note that the issue with files languishing is not just with the THA and THA departments. And I'll give you an example. Last week, I had a meeting with the CEO and a team from Angostura. So plenty big things happening in this space. I don't drink rum, but I met with the team at Angostura because they're interested in doing some partnerships with the THA and tourism next year. And Angostura applied and received from us space down at Cove, waiting on approvals to be able to do their work and to build out at Cove, waiting inordinately long. And so I called the head of that department in health to see where it was in our system, only to be told that the file, after such a long time, only just arrived at health from the TTPS that very morning. And so the languishing of files in the system is not necessarily with the THA. I pointed out WASA and fires in Trinidad have over 300 files languishing. And I don't understand this argument about land titles, because in the first place, you cannot engage town and country planning if you have no title for the land. How will you reach there in the first place? In fact, to begin the application, you have to show some measure of ownership for the land on which you're going to build. Town and country planning not going to engage you if you can't show any measure of title for the land. That's one of the first things you have to get. So once it reaches at WASA stage and fires stage and at health stage, it can be assumed that you have the land title arrangements already organized. And it's a matter of these agencies doing their work efficiently. I said that this motion will authorize us to do, in fact, what Secretary Charles started, which is to bring all the players into one room at the same time. In fact, Secretary Charles at one time used to have a multi-sectoral meeting monthly where we bring all these heads in one space and review all of these applications in one space. And I mentioned that before, and that's one of the benefits of this motion. We won't have to necessarily send things all over the place. We could bring it in one space, all the THA departments that are concerned in one space, do one reviewing, and at the same time, on the same time, be able to approve, deny, or put on hold. I also spoke to the fact that this will allow us to ramp up the digitization of the unit. What that will also do is that several different officers can look at the same document at the same time. That's what digitization allows for. So you across in health, you down in works, you in electrical inspectorate, you across in fires, you in WASA, you in Tiantec, you wherever, could all look at the same document at the same time and grant approvals, denials, put questions, whatever may be the case. And the law allows for that. There was quite a bit of talk from the councillor about the PAFD Act. And I raised it. And I raised the fact that there are some elements of this act from 2014 to now still to be properly proclaimed and enacted. And those portions are, interestingly, some of the portions about the authority of the THA to do what the THA needs to do. So if it's not enacted, then I don't know how that really dictates how we move. We could only go on law that is already enacted by Parliament, as in it's properly proclaimed on all of that. I will also hasten to add this fact. As it stands now, the THA really and truly does not need a new THA Act to be able to take up the function of town and country planning. It does not, because the law allows for that as it is. I quoted the Constitution first, and I noticed that the minority ignored that completely. The fact that the Parliament has authority to take away executive function from the President and to delegate it to any person or institution in the country. And that Act 40 of 1996, in essence, was the Parliament saying we are taking away these executive functions and delegating it to people of Tobago through the THA. That's what happened. And in fact, that is one of the reasons why the THA Act did not seek to amend prior or previous acts of Parliament. It did not. Or else we would have had to spend time going through every single piece of legislation in the country, amending this one, amending that one, amending the other, in order to allow the THA to function. We actually have been doing it in several spheres already. We already have been acting on legislation that is passed in Trinidad that says minister and does not say secretary, and we have been using that as authority to do some of our work in some of our divisions. I mentioned health. I mentioned the division of infrastructure as another one. Youth and sport, education. We have been. In fact, if the THA wants, the THA could sit down now and start to make some additions to the curriculum and so on. And I could tell you the benefit of standing up on the law. with the whole reopening of school, notice that the ministry in Trinidad changed their minds about sending the children home for a period between, just before the exam, not having school. You know why that is so? Because when they came to the THA, the line secretaries informed them that upon consultation with the people of Tobago, the teachers in Tobago, they did not plan for another shutdown prior to the exam, and the teachers organized their scheme of work right up to the exam, and that we were not going to follow what Trinidad was doing in that regard. Guess what happened? The minister in Trinidad and the ministry end up pivoting away from their original plan. And that's what happens when you stand up. That's what happens when you say, okay, we are ready under the law to do what the law allows us to do. So this motion is not asking for us to create a new law. This motion is not asking for us to abandon the Town and Country Planning Act of 1960 or the elements of the PFD Act of 2014 that were enacted. This motion simply is saying to the public of Tobago, and by extension Trinidad, here are these two pieces of legislation. The law says the THA is supposed to carry out the function. There is precedence that a former chief secretary and a former executive, that they were in fact carrying out the function before. We stopped for a while, and we are returning to carrying out the function as the law allows for. We are not amending anything. We aren't changing any policy anywhere. All we're doing is carrying out the function. And yes, I admitted earlier that there were some plans in place. The space is there at PRDI building to house the Town and Country Planning Unit and to have this kind of build out. And what we are going to do is that we're going to ensure they get the equipment, we are going to ensure they get the staffing, we are going to ensure we digitize our records, we are going to ensure we bring our records that are done in Trinidad up to Tobago to be part of the process, and we are going to also be doing simultaneously our spatial development plan, because the THA has authority for spatial development, and we can do our spatial development here in Tobago. We're going to do that plan in accordance to what we need in Tobago. I don't know how we could be talking about National Spatial Development Plan. Who consulted Tobago? I'm waiting to see the consultation with Tobagonians about a spatial plan about Tobago. Somebody else somewhere doing that for us. Where was the consultation locally? We're telling me about a National Spatial Development Plan. Again, somebody else deciding for us how our lands should be used, and that should not be so. That should not be so. It's either we want to be big boys and jam in the big league, or we forever remain a colony of somebody else. We have to make that decision today. And we cannot be timid to Tobago about taking these bold steps. People respect you when you take bold steps. And I could tell you this. If the beaches weren't open, one of the first motions that would have come here would have been a motion to open the beaches in Tobago. I was prepared to go that far in challenging the public health ordinance, because the public health ordinance, as it is, with a decree from the Minister of Health, is subsidiary to the THA Act. So I was going to challenge them on that, and I know I would have won that as well. I know that. And so we must claim the powers we do have. There are many powers we wish we had that we do not have. But there are a few that we do have, and we need to use those first while demanding more. We need to. It surprises me that so many issues surrounding land and land title still requires going to Trinidad for a stamp, some special stamp that takes however long to dry and all sort of story. Still. And we have the 7th schedule of the Act that demands that they actually bring the service to Tobago. But nobody got up any time and say, the law said bring the service to Tobago, so bring the service to Tobago. Nobody did. And I'm saying, to whom much is given, much is expected. Be good stewards, be faithful stewards of whatever little you have first, and that will give you the moral authority to demand more. Be like those guys in the scripture with the talent that didn't bury it, and we have buried the legislative talents we had for 21 years.
Member, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. For 21 years. Time to unearth those buried legislative talents and reinvest it in a way that can see gains for the people of Tobago. And so I'm happy you agree in principle that this should be done in Tobago. I'm happy, minority, you agree in principle, notwithstanding a disagreement with me on the interpretation of the law, that it cannot continue as is, and that we need a system whereby tongue and country planning function is a function of the THA to allow for efficiency. This is going to be a bold move. This is going to be a bold step. I did make attempts, several in fact, through our Department of Protocol to meet with the former Minister of Planning. The last thing we were told is do another letter and send it because she wasn't available at the initial times we were available. And then as we were processing that, we recognized that the Prime Minister woke up one morning, played bad and did a reshuffling of his cabinet as he's entitled to in law. There is a new minister in place there. I had officers reach out to her already, indicating that we need to have a conversation about the matter. So my first approach is not adversarial, but I'm also saying I am not afraid or timid of becoming an adversary, because I'd rather be an adversary on behalf of the people of Tobago than be cowering in a corner and allowing somebody else to ride over our legislative powers, the little that we do have. And so I will respectfully engage in conversation at the soonest opportunity, but we will be moving ahead with bringing the tongue and country planning function in Tobago. If that results in a parallel tongue and country planning unit, then so be it. We have precedents by virtue of the reforestation program, but we will be having the tongue and country planning function in Tobago that will ease up what's happening with the banks, the mortgages, the long-term loans. It will ease up, it will boost the construction sector. It will allow for job creation. It will allow for development of the island. And it will allow for Tobagoans to move somewhere and to someplace quickly. And so I thank you, Madam Presiding Officer, for allowing this motion and this debate. And let me also signal that there will be several other similar motions like this one coming to this House. And let me signal in advance that the next one I will be bringing will be concerning the financial regulations of the Tobago House of Assembly, because the Act speaks to that and what ought to happen in the absence of the Parliament accepting our financial regulations. And the THA tried on 2 occasions to have the Parliament do that, and the Parliament has not done so. But the Act speaks to what should happen when that does not happen. And let me signal finally that in the coming month, that this House will meet more than once in the month, because I'm not waiting on the 4th Thursday in April to bring that next motion. I'll be bringing it earlier. So be prepared, colleagues, to come into this chamber more than once per month for debate. If that means we will have to hire more staff to do the Hansard and to get those clerical functions done efficiently, then we will have to do so. But be prepared for the work ahead. And it starts with Tobago taking a bold step in accepting the functions like tongue and country planning that we do have now. Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Member. Members, the question put is, whereas Section 25(1) of the Tobago House of Assembly Act 1996 provides as follows: without prejudice to Section 75(1) of the Constitution, The Assembly shall, in relation to Tobago, be responsible for the formulation and implementation of policy in respect of the matters set out in the 5th schedule. And whereas Section 25(2) of the said Act empowers the Assembly to do all such acts and take all such steps as may be necessary for or incidental to the exercise of its powers or for the discharge of its duties. And whereas tongue and country planning is one of the matters set out in the 5th schedule as item number 15, and whereas the institutional structure has not been put in place to implement this function, be it resolved that this House authorize the Executive Council to take immediate steps to establish the institutional structure for the implementation of the tongue and country planning function by the Assembly in accordance with the Tobago House of Assembly Act 1996. All in favor, say aye. Any against? The ayes have it. The motion is carried.